Good afternoon, everybody, and greetings from Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm taking a little time out from attending the North Carolina Library Association conference today because I completely forgot to put this on my schedule when I made up the Teacher Toolbox schedule. And so here I am, hanging out with you guys today. So today, and I know not everybody's here, but we do have a fair amount of stuff to go through, and so I'll just get right into it. So the topic of today's session is information, curating information overload. And for the most part, for those of you who have stuck with me from the beginning of the semester with co-teaching with the school librarian to understanding online research and comprehension from a couple weeks ago, and then today I'm progressively building on the session before. And so online research and comprehension ties right into curating information overload. And so and once I get going, that should become abundantly clear. So a little bit of housekeeping. Hopefully there aren't any, you guys don't get any noises. Housekeeping just came through not too long ago with the vacuum cleaner, so hopefully we don't have to worry about that. But how to ask a question. Make sure when you open up a session, click on the Q&A, make sure it's enabled. And then in the top right-hand corner, there's that little grid box where you can click to ask a question, and then that opens up, and then you can see my friend Jason, who graciously shared this stuff with me. This little, on the right-hand side of your screen, this question box, or kind of a chat box, we can use it as really, opens up. At the bottom, it says ask a question, and then click on that green button, and then you can type in whatever you want into this into that box. Click submit, and then it pops up for me to see. I will be honest, this is the first time I'm using a Google Hangout with just one screen, and so it might take me a little bit to get to your questions since I have to toggle back and forth a little bit instead of look off to the side of my other screen. But hopefully we won't run into too many issues with that. So today's objectives, when it comes to curating information, we need to identify some tools to find, store, and share information. And there's plenty of them out there, and what I give here are just the basics. Hopefully it's just kind of a jumping off point. Whatever tools you may be using right now, they're probably good enough. I mean, you're familiar with them, and that's fine. How do you, and then we'll just kind of jump into how these tools can be used with your own personal or professional learning, and then we'll kind of discuss as we go along, especially at the end, how some of these tools can be used in the classroom. I do need to give a shout out to Stephen Anderson. Much of what I'm going to talk about today is based on his book that was published earlier this year called Content Curation, How to Avoid Information Overload. It's stuff that I've been doing a fair amount the last couple of years, but after reading his book, I got hooked, and I know I need to do a better job of finding, well, as a librarian, finding information isn't too much of a problem, but storing that information, organizing it in an effective way so I can find everything I'm looking for quickly and efficiently, and then sharing that information. And I'll be honest that I'm kind of a newbie when it comes to sharing information, where librarians have a kind of, some librarians fall into that stereotype of like the gatekeeper to information, and that's kind of the old viewpoint, but it's still around today. And even as a classroom teacher, and I started using Digo and sharing those uh, things with my students, those links. Um, I I set everything in Digo as private, and so now I'm trying to clean up my mess and make sure everything's public. Um, and so even with Twitter, I use Twitter. I kind of lurk around, I search, looking for ideas and information. I don't do a lot of sharing yet. I've tried blogging once, didn't work out very well, but I'm looking forward to picking that up again soon. And so just uh, some of these things, it kind of, and that's, I've heard the same thing from others. Even Steven Anderson in his book talks about how he started to use Twitter, thought it was stupid, but then came back to it. Same thing with blogging. And I hear that that's a very common thing with a lot of different people, where they don't necessarily find the use for it. Like Evernote, I've kind of been wishy-washy on Evernote, but I'm starting to pick it up again um, to make my life a bit more organized. Um, and and I really see and understand and appreciate what you can do with Evernote and the functionality of it, um, and how it can be a jumping off point to share information as well. So we'll talk about quite a few of those things. So really, a lot of this boils down to, like I said, it's an extension of the last time I talked to you um, with understanding online research and comprehension. When the internet is full of great sources and information, but it's also full of junk, where you do have to sift through a lot of different things in order to get what you're looking for. And so really, you need to, because there's so much information, and there's whether it's the news, or if you are active on Twitter, or even if you have, excuse me, 100 or more blogs in your news feed, like I do, it's really hard to organize that much information. It's really hard to store what you find valuable, and deciding on how to share it, because there's so many different options out there, can be pretty overwhelming. And so think of curation really becomes important because of a lot of the new standards out there, especially Common Core and the next gen science, and the new social studies standards, where a lot of what students are doing and what you're asking students to do is focused inquiry. It's problem-based learning. It's project-based learning. And so, and all of these things are inquiry-driven. It's not just fact-based questions. It's not. It's collaborating with local community organizations to help them solve a problem. And so, it's information curation. Just it becomes a necessity. And so and on the last slide, I finished up with the three parts already: finding, storing, and sharing information. And so a lot of this really comes down to a really basic summary. And this is where the school librarian ties in. I shared this with my last session. Students' ability to locate, evaluate, organize, synthesize, and communicate information for a purpose. This is the basic definition of information literacy skills. And so your school librarian, your media specialist, is well versed in helping students curate information to find, store, organize, and share. And they may not call it curation, but that's really what it is. Try and think of it this way, where if you've ever gone to an art museum, or even the state of North Carolina Natural History Museum, um, those curators go out and find all of this wonderful stuff, bring it all together, they store it, they organize it, and then they put it together to tell a story. And so, in part of the point of their job, the main point of their job as a curator, is to share that information. It doesn't do much good if you go out and corral all of this great information on lesson plans, or you find all of this great information that's age appropriate on, on, on the Holocaust for middle grade students. It's, you don't do much to share, or even if you use all of that to create a lesson or a unit, or a hands-on activity, or a problem-based learning project that you use as an assessment for your students, and you spend all that time and effort in creating it, and then you don't share it, or you share it with the people in your department, in your school, when it could be just as appropriate and just as amazing and wonderful for somebody across the district or across the state, or even across the country. And so I think, I'll come to it a little bit later. I really think teachers have almost a moral obligation to share all of their stuff based on the hard work that they do. It kind of validates what you guys do as teachers and as school librarians, and it just makes the profession better. So really, when it comes down to finding information, this is just basic information literacy stuff, basic research skills. Keep it simple. 2 to 3 keywords in a search box instead of searching "my head hurts." Search headaches, causes, symptoms. And so it's kind of playing around with keywords, that conversational language where Google's doing better, Bing is doing better. Yahoo, honestly haven't been on there in quite a while. I'm sure they're doing better as well. But conversational language versus terms commonly used is very important. And these are all things that you can easily integrate into your lessons for your students. And of course, advanced search techniques. Google's a great starting point. You find a lot of stuff, but these advanced search techniques are really what makes Google great. And so there's 2 ways to get to those advanced search techniques from Google. When you're on the Google homepage, in the bottom right-hand corner is Settings, and you can just click on Advanced Search there, or you can do a basic search and then go up to the cogwheel, and then you can go to Advanced Search from there. And so every now and again, Google likes to change that up without telling anybody, really. Well, they do tell people in their blogs and some of their news releases, but I'm not one of those people who follows all of the changes that Google makes to all of their services. And so I don't know too many people who are, and so you just need to pay attention on where things may move to. So, whoops, getting ahead of myself. So, Google does a very good job in walking you through their advanced search. This is a word or phrase, all of the kind of what the box is to the left, and then how to do that in the box is right there as well. And so some of these, like, all right, headache symptoms, let's change that and go with causes. But look, any symptoms, because that's kind of self-explanatory. Your head hurts, pounding. We don't need any information on that. But then we can limit it to, say, .org websites. And click on Advanced Search. And so all of our listings that come up are .org, .org, .org. And so we still have quite a few results, but we're taking out something that we absolutely don't need with this minus symptoms and then headache causes. And so we're starting to to become better finders of information. That's a silly thing to say, but more focused on how we search for information. So those are some of the Boolean operators. Capital and connects two words together. So going back to here, we can go with and say we want symptoms in there or symptoms. We can tie these together. With parentheses and say tie those search terms together with the Boolean operators with the parentheses, but then make sure over-the-counter medicine is locked together where it has to be found on a web page in that order, no exceptions, and see what pops up. And so now we're down to like 8,600 results. And so you still need to go through and determine the validity of these, but it's not so overwhelming when you've got, let's say, University of Michigan Health System or Center for Young Women's Health or University of Maryland Medical Center, and where it for the most part tells you the authority of the website, and so it just makes it easier to say, is this good to answer? Is this good information or not? So the site, like it did, you can .edu, .org, .ecu.edu. You can search for file type, like .docx for a Microsoft Word document, or .pdf, or .mp4 if you want an audio file. And so there's a lot of different ways you can go with it and limit your search results right from the get-go. And so it helps you stay, using the advanced search techniques helps you stay focused on what you're actually doing, what you're trying to it helps you stay focused on your goal. And so it's staying focused on your goal is the most important, because even so, Google's homepage is for the most part free of distractions, but the search results page can be a mess, where you've got ads up on top, you've got other things on the sidebar, and then when you're looking at websites, it can be just overblown, and you can be easily distracted. But the advanced search techniques can help you stay focused, working towards your goal. Another thing with a lot of the search results you need to look for is, all right, I found this, when am I going to use it? And a lot of this is especially important for educators, because you find something, oh, this is great for my lesson on the modern Middle East, if you're a world history teacher like I was. But then a couple months later down the road, you forget about it, or something else happens in the Middle East, another coup, another uprising, and it completely changes. So knowing how long will that resource, that search result, that information will retain its currency is pretty important as well. And then, of course, how good is it? I mean, primary sources versus secondary sources. We try to go for the primary if at all possible. What's the authority behind your source? Is it valid? You may have to check its validity. And so these are all questions when you're storing and organizing your information that you need to keep in mind. And of course, the tail end of curation, sharing. And like I asked before, it's a rhetorical question, but I tend to agree with it. And I know a number of educators that don't. But do educators have a moral obligation to share? Personally, I think it helps strengthen the profession. But it also re-emphasizes this battle of consumers of information versus creators of information. And we kind of uh, talk to and hope that our students become creators of information. And so this curating information overload helps you lead by example. So you can add, you can manipulate, you can catalog and organize, you can share information across a number of different mediums, um, and you lead by example for your students, and teach them through your own actions that, hey, I want you to be a creator of information and uh, not just a consumer, and you can show your own efforts as an example. So how do you get started? Um, this is kind of a mess. Like when I started um, very fervently reading blogs, I had no idea where to start. Like, who do I follow outside of people within my own school or within my own library? How how does this work? Where do I go? Who do I trust? And so really, you, how it started for me, I found one person. I can't even remember who it was anymore. Um, I think it was, I can't even remember. I can't even venture a guess. But that person had a blog roll on, on, on their own blog. And so just on one side of the page, they had a list, a running list of all the blogs that they follow, of other teachers, of other educators, of other librarians. Like, this is great. If this person trusts these people, and I know his stuff is pretty good, I should have a pretty good idea of what to find by looking at all of these other blogs on their blog roll. And so that's really how it started. And then I ran across things like the EduBlog Awards, which is kind of I think they bill themselves as like the Emmys of the education blogging world. And so uh, you can look at previous winners. Um, they don't have the most recent ones, but they do have a number of different categories, uh, from administrators to media specialists to teachers, and so on and so forth. Best student blog, class blogs, and so it's a lot of good information. I mean, you can just kind of thumb through it and find something that interests you. Another thing um, that I ran into starting to find information is kind of this Teach 100. So all of these scores, in my opinion, are pretty much meaningless. It just kind of shows where you rank in a popularity contest. The more popular you are, and the more people visit your site, and the more people share on their own blogs, um, or via Twitter, or I can't remember what all the criteria are. But the more people share your stuff from your blog um, across the blogosphere, the higher your score is. And so the scores are really meaningless, in my opinion, but for the most part, it's a pretty good list. Like, I ran across the Innovative Educator here, and I follow them uh, pretty religiously. Um, and so it just depends on what you're looking for. Like, user-generated education is an amazing site to go to um, with Jackie Gerstein. And this list is compiled from uh, or under the umbrella of the University of Southern California. And so, gosh, and Jackie hasn't even claimed it yet. But user-generated education, there's Jackie. Um, Focuses on a lot of informal learning, especially maker education. And it's one of my favorite blogs since the Teaching Resources Center is actively looking into the development of the makerspace this school year. Twitter, you've got hashtags and chats. You've got specific topics like STEM learning, Common Core, hashtag MakerEd, and then you can kind of take a step back and do some more general topics like PBL or BYOD. So many education organizations have their own Twitter handle. Chats are even better. There's a running list of when education chats are. Like EdChat is probably the longest running, if I can find it on this list, is actually on Tuesdays. EdChat is there. Longest running chat for educators. Usually about 500 people or so tune in every week. And so wherever you want to go, almost any time throughout the day, since they're mostly educators, they do tend to be at night. But just tune in, search for that hashtag, and then just kind of follow the conversation and see what gets thrown out there. It's pretty good for brainstorming. So there's a lot of information out there, and then there's some other online communities, Classroom 2.0 or Classroom20.com, Edmodo communities. I haven't heard of Edmodo being used too much here in North Carolina since Google's such a big, has a huge following across the state. Google Groups. For your own personal learning. EdWeb, not, whoops. Apologies, my hyperlink didn't work, or I forgot to put it in there. I'm a huge fan of edweb.net, especially when it comes to professional learning and professional development. In your own personal learning. The best thing about them, in my opinion, is their webinars. So it's free to join, and you do have to join in order to view the webinars, but the webinars are free, and then you are, they get recorded, archived, and then they're free to watch anytime after. I have a running list of webinars that I need to sit in on and go through the archive and just hunker down and watch a few. And then within EdWeb, there's also other professional learning communities. So there's one for MakerEd if you're more into the instructional design, or middle grades, or high school and elementary school. There is a community within EdWeb that you can call your own and lead you in your own professional learning. So now we get into some of the tools. And for me, the tools aren't as important because you can use a number of different tools, I'm sure, for any of these things. And so now we're getting into the organization and storing. And I'm really only going to talk about Evernote for the organization and storing because it started off as this small thing and it's changed into this behemoth of a tool that is really a one-stop shop for everything. And the way it's been described to me and in the way I like to describe it to people is within Evernote you've got three things. You've got notebooks, notes, and then tags. The notebooks are like your analog filing cabinet that you have behind your desk or in your classroom. The notes are the pieces of paper or folders that go into those drawers. And so, but then the benefit of Evernote is that you can add tags. And so those tags to each of those notes or to any of those notebooks help you filter your information. So you can go into Evernote, and I can show you, I'll show you all of my notebooks. I'm opening, this is an old one. I've opened up a new one just so I can get rid of all the old stuff, or keep the old stuff, but then kind of move into some newer ground. So you can search for a notebook. You can search by the tag. You can search by the title. Here are some of the notes. So my article ideas of some journal articles that I'd like to write in the near future. Ideas. This is my Christmas list for my wife and my kid. Meeting minutes. Just some arts and crafts. What fruits and vegetables are in season during the summer and then in the spring. And so and you can search these notes and notebooks by their tags. And it helps the filtering process immensely. You can find things so much quicker and so much more efficiently when you tag everything within your notebooks and your notes. And so some of the other features that there are in Evernote, you can, it accepts so many different file formats, images, PNG and JPEG, PDFs. You can upload movies, you can upload audio files. You can, along with just basic writing text documents within a note, you can do voice recordings over the top of a note. So you can kind of, if it's too much to type out or write down, you can just kind of record your voice and give your own thoughts as a reminder later on. And then there's another thing called Web Clipper. Oops. Get out of there. And so here's Web Clipper. Web Clipper helps you kind of store information that you find online. So you can see up here in the upper right hand corner the little Evernote elephant. And so you do have to, if you've got Chrome, you can go to the download the app, or actually it's the Chrome browser extension that I have here. You find whatever online, click on the elephant, and then it takes a screen capture of that page. And after that screen capture, you can annotate, you can highlight, as you can see in this photo here. You can add arrows, you can point out things that you like, and it automatically saves it to Evernote. And then it makes it just as easy to share it via Twitter, your blog, or any other social media platform that you use to share information and communicate with your professional learning community. Another tool for curation is Pistachio. It's kind of an extension to Evernote. And so it's an actual publishing platform. So if you're not comfortable, or you're not quite sure that you want to set up your own blog with Blogger or WordPress or anything like that, you could use Pistachio, where it uses your notebooks, everything that you store and organize and create in Evernote. You can just push it out to Pistachio, and then that's it. It's done. So it's actually a very easy tool that's free, where you do all the work on the back end in Evernote and create your own notes, and that's it. And then you just push it out to Pistachio, and then it does all the work for you and upload it to your blog. Um, I personally haven't used Pistachio, but it is, I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I'm seriously considering using it when I try and start up blogging again, hopefully in the near future. And I'm hoping this time that blogging sticks. So some of the ways you can use Evernote in the classroom. Evernote wants you educators to use their product, and they want students to use their product as well. And so Evernote 101, all of these links, and I'll share my slides with you guys shortly after the session's over. But Evernote 101 is a YouTube video on how to use it in the classroom. Evernote for Educators is a live binder of all the different things you can do with Evernote in the classroom. 10 Evernote tips for school. This is a blog post from Evernote themselves. And so it just gives you options. So taking notes, going paperless, managing, you can use it to annotate and highlight PDFs. You can organize your research. You can upload an audio file of a lecture as well. And so there's a lot of different options. And if you really want to get hardcore and learn about how Evernote can really be used in the classroom, there's the Nerdy Teacher. He's got this epic Evernote experiment that he did with his sophomore English class, Honors American Literature, and Freshman English. And it's just a fascinating read on how it can be fully integrated into the classroom. And it's easily adaptable down to the middle grades level as well. Diigo is a social bookmarking site. I mentioned this earlier that I do use it, but I didn't understand the full purpose of it. And so I kind of made everything in my Diigo account private, unfortunately. And I'm in the process of cleaning up that mess and making it public and start connecting with more people on Diigo. So basically, it's instead of using, say, Internet Explorers or Firefoxes or Google Chrome's bookmark feature, you save it to Diigo. You can save the bookmark. They've got an extension here that you can add to your browser. You can tag resources. One thing you need to watch out for with Diigo is everything is public unless you change it to private. And so this is why it's going to be such a hassle for me to clean this up, because I had to make sure everything was private when I saved everything, but now I have to go back in and change everything. And so here's an example of a public Diigo page. So this is Stephen Anderson. He's the author of the book that I mentioned at the beginning. And so this is his library. These are all the things that he's saved to Diigo. These are the tags that he's used with all of his, within his library, and how he, and you can see with each saved link, you can see the tags, these little buttons at the bottom of them. And so that's how he finds things. And you, since it's a public page, you can search, say, search for open educational, if I can spell it correctly. And I can search his public library. And here's open education resources, comes up in the titles of a few, but then I see he's tagged it as OER. So that might even produce more results, actually different results, which is pretty interesting. So, and then going back to his front page, you can see you can create a network of people that you follow within Diigo and who are following you. You can also request to join groups within the Diigo network. In most of these, you do need permission from the organizer of this group. And so you can find tools and resources and information and topics, whether the general topics or specific topics that you can follow and find information from fellow educators from around the country. So Diigo in the classroom, they do have special offerings for education. And I think, personally, I think Diigo is an amazing resource, especially when you can go to diigo.com/education and sign up for, just by answering a couple questions to verify that you are a teacher, you can create a Diigo education domain, a teacher account, and so then you can create your own student accounts. You can create class groups, and so it's a great way, especially the tagging feature of being able to share amongst all of those resources amongst everybody in your classroom, is a great way for students to learn and develop keywords. The use of these tags helps students go through some of that information that they found, identify keywords within that resource, and then add those as tags. And it helps them, it will help them going back to Google and other internet search engines, or even into more academic databases moving forward. Pocket's very similar to Diigo, and that's I don't use Pocket. It's very similar to Diigo. The main difference is because I have Diigo, I don't use Pocket, and also I also have an RSS, a really simple syndicator for feed. I use Feedly for that, and it does some of the same things as Pocket. So adding another thing to my repertoire, I don't think would be the best idea. The main difference between Pocket and Diigo is things are private until you want to make them public. You can control how things are presented in Pocket, and so it's very intriguing. And I did seriously think about switching from Feedly, my RSS feed, over to Pocket, because I can take out I can change the text, I can change the font size, I can just make, I can eliminate all the distractions and only have the title of the article and then all of the words. I can eliminate all the sidebars and then just get down to reading. And so how Pocket can be used is if you don't have time to read something right away, you can save it to Pocket, and it stays as unread. Then you can go back in and you can read it. You can mark it as read and hold on to it, save it for later. You can add tags to it. You can delete it if it's not valuable enough to you, or you can share it with your group amongst a number of different social media outlets. And so it's a pretty neat little tool, but if you already have an RSS feed, like Feedly's already tied into Evernote, so all of the saved articles that I have in there, I can send it to Evernote to save for later, organize it a little bit better rather than just having a running list of what I've read. You can also share it. Feedly also lets me share it via Twitter and Facebook and so on and so forth. And Pocket does a lot of the same things. Check and see if any questions popped up. So some other web tools, like I've mentioned before, it's not so much about the tool as how you want to, how you plan on using it. So Pinterest, I know, is pretty big with arts and crafts and art education, um, since it's visual based. Uh, EduClipper um, has its own pluses and minuses. Storify is taking all of your social media posts and creating a story out of it. One of my colleagues here, whenever she goes at ECU, whenever she goes to a library conference like NCLA or another conference across the country, we have to submit a travel report to our director of the library and share that travel report with everybody else within the library. And so she just documents everything through her Twitter feed and sets up a Storify and uses Storify and then shares that with the library rather than going into a Google Doc or Microsoft Word and just typing everything out. So it can be a much more dynamic way to share your story, whether it's your experience on a vacation, um, to your experience or your reflections on a professional development opportunity that you just came from. Um, it's got a lot of different things you can do with it. IFTTT um, is pretty interesting. I hadn't heard of this one until recently. Basically, it's an acronym for if this, then that. Um, there's some, basically you create um, recipes to automatically send information to specific places. You can use those recipes to find new information and quickly organize that information. And then just kind of cut out the fluff and store and organize and share what's really important to you. Like if you're big on Twitter and you have your Twitter favorites, you can send those Twitter favorites to Evernote. Your RSS feed, you can send them to email. You can send the daily weather to other programs. If you've got a Fitbit or a Jawbone to help keep track of all of your workouts and things like that, you can send that to other programs as well. And so those are just some of the things that you can do and make sharing that information across devices and then across uh, your professional learning community and that even amongst friends and family a little bit easier. ThingLink kind of takes us back to the idea of that museum curator. You want to draw people in and tell a story um, of all the things that you found and organized and want to share. And so it offers free accounts for educators, but also adds the ability to create students' account as well. Of course, they will ask you to try and update to premium, but it is free to sign up for the basic account. Flipboard is another social media tool where basically you can create your own personal magazine for the world to share. So like Digo throws everything in list form. This gives you more of a magazine feel. I don't have Flipboard, but I can show you one of our professors in the College of Education, Abby Brown. He has his own Flipboard. And let's see. is. And so it adds some more visuals. And when you click on things and read it, it'll take you to the original source. But it also helps kind of draw people in to tell your story with all of the things that you collect and organize and then want to share. So, and whether it's ThingLink or EduClipper or Pinterest or Storify or Evernote, or it's the tools not that important, because so many different people can use so many different tools to do this. These are just some of them. And the most important thing is becoming adept for your own personal learning, and also for something that's easily translatable to your students, is finding information, storing and organizing that information, and of course sharing that information. That's what's important, not so much the tools. The tools just make it easier. So in the classroom, this is the curation part, and especially the information literacy part, the research skills. It doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion, in classrooms at all levels, whether it's elementary school, middle grades, high school, and even college level. I still deal with a number of different professors who, my students, they're in college now, they'll be able to figure it out on their own. And cutting through all of the garbage that's on the internet, or cutting through all of the garbage that isn't necessary or needed or relevant, even in an academic database, is so difficult, because there's just so much out there. And professors, even in higher education, don't emphasize and reinforce the finding, the organizing, the synthesizing, and evaluating and sharing of information enough. And it kind of trickles down to the lower grades as well. But there's so many different resources online, and I'm sure your school librarian has a number of different things at the ready for you as well. And you don't necessarily need to go to Google search lesson plan or Google search education to look for lesson plans and to look for trainings on how to better use the Google search, or Google's evaluating of evaluating the credibility of sources. I'm sure your school librarian already has something at the ready for you that's already designed for your specific student population. And so all of this information is great, but I can almost guarantee you that if not your school librarian, then somebody within your department, within your school, somebody within your district already has information like this to help you teach some of these skills to your students. Another good one is Kathy Schrock's Guide to Everything. She's got a ton of good information on here, and of course has some critical evaluation tools, some surveys, some sample lesson plans that you can adapt to your own classroom as well. And so there's a lot out there. Even the wonderfully named CRAP test, evaluating information. A number of different colleges use it, looking at currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose. And those are just a few of the things that you can you can use, or criteria that you can use to evaluate web pages. So there's a lot of stuff already out there. It's just sharing within your own network, within your own school, to see what's already being used with your students in some way, shape, or form. And huge fan of never reinventing the wheel. And when it comes to lesson plans, I will share for as long as I physically can, especially if it's something that works. And that's the end goal of the whole curation process. Sharing things that work, sharing valuable resources that you found and you have used with others in your network. That way it saves others time. And then teachers within your network, even administrators, will reciprocate in kind and share things that they found that they know will help you out as well. And so that is all I have today. Thank you for stopping by. I do encourage you to fill out a quick session evaluation. It only takes a couple minutes to do. We're trying to make these sessions in the Teacher Toolbox series relevant to you, trying to make them better, and then also trying to solicit some feedback on what future sessions you as area educators would like to see in the near future, whether it's next semester or next academic year. And I will send you guys, everybody who registered for this session, a quick email in a minute or two once I close this down with a link to the session evaluation, a link to the archive of the video, and a link to the little quiz that I have for you as well, so you guys can get your continuing education needs as well. So I don't see any questions that need to be taken care of here, but thank you for stopping by. I hope you got some good information about it. And of course, you can always contact me if you have any questions. And I hope to see you guys again soon in a couple weeks from the next session. Have a great day, everybody.